He was one of the richest men in the history of the Roman Empire. A man who owned entire cities, a man who could raise armies with his own gold. A man so powerful that not even Julius Caesar or Pompey could govern without him. But in the end, that same gold became the instrument of his destruction. When the Parthians finally caught Marcus Licinius Crassus, they didn't just kill him, they turned his obsession into a weapon. They poured molten gold down his throat. This isn't just a story of war, it's a story of greed, humiliation, and one of the most ironic and brutal deaths in ancient history. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear has been buried for over 2,000 years. Marcus Licinius Crassus was born into a wealthy patrician family in 115 BC. But wealth wasn't enough. Not for Crassus. He wanted control, and he would achieve it by profiting from Rome's darkest moments. When the dictator Sulla seized power and launched a violent purge of his enemies, Crassus saw opportunity. He began buying the confiscated properties of the executed at absurdly low prices and reselling them for massive profit. Rome bled and Crassus got rich, very rich. But that wasn't the end. Crassus built Rome's first real estate empire. He even created a private fire brigade, not to help people, but to exploit them. His men would rush to burning buildings, offer to buy them at rock-bottom prices, then extinguish the flames, only after the paperwork was signed. He wasn't just rich, he was calculated, cold, and dangerous. Eventually, Crassus joined forces with two other rising stars, Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great. Together, they formed the First Triumvirate, a secret alliance that dominated Roman politics from the shadows. But while Caesar chased military glory in Gaul and Pompey secured the East, Crassus, already the wealthiest man in Rome, felt left behind. He had the gold. Now he wanted the glory. The thirst for greatness would be his undoing. In 53 BC, Crassus led an enormous Roman army into Parthia, a powerful empire stretching through modern-day Iran. He dreamed of becoming Rome's next Alexander the Great. Instead, he would become a cautionary tale. Ignoring warnings from experienced commanders, Crassus marched his legions deep into unfamiliar desert terrain, chasing riches and titles. The Parthians, led by the brilliant general Serena, were waiting. Unlike Rome's heavy infantry, Parthia deployed swift cavalry and relentless horse archers. The Battle of Carrhae was a massacre. Roman soldiers were cut down in the heat and sand. Arrows rained from every direction. Water supplies ran dry. Crassus' own son, Publius, led a desperate charge and was slaughtered. His head was cut off and paraded before the Roman lines. Crassus watched his legacy fall apart, one arrow at a time. Defeated and humiliated, Crassus agreed to meet the Parthians under a white flag, hoping to negotiate the survival of his army. But historians say what happened next is murky and deadly. According to Roman sources, the negotiations turned into a trap. Crassus was either ambushed or killed in confusion. But the Parthians weren't done with him yet. They had one final punishment, one that would echo through history. As the story goes, the Parthians captured Crassus alive, and to mock his legendary greed, they forced open his mouth and poured molten gold down his throat. The symbol was clear. This is what your hunger brought you. Whether this moment was real or embellished by Roman writers, the message remains timeless. Greed kills. Crassus, the man who built an empire of ash and silver, died choking on the very thing he lived for, and it didn't end there. The Parthians reportedly used Crassus's head as a prop in a theatrical play mocking Roman tragedy. They humiliated him in death, just as thoroughly as they defeated him in battle. Back in Rome, the defeat at Carrhae was a national disgrace. Over 20,000 Roman soldiers were dead. 10,000 were taken as slaves. And Crassus, the man who had bankrolled Caesar's rise, was gone. With him vanished the balance of power in Rome. The death of Crassus unraveled the fragile alliance of the triumvirate. Caesar and Pompey would soon turn on each other, plunging Rome into civil war. The Republic would never recover. Crassus' legacy wasn't glory. It was chaos. Crassus reminds us that wealth without wisdom is a ticking bomb. He built a fortune off the suffering of others, climbed to the top of the Roman world, and then marched straight into a trap, driven by ego, greed, and pride. And in the end, the gold he craved became the fire that consumed him. History is full of names etched in stone. Heroes, emperors, tyrants, but sometimes the most powerful lesson comes from the man who had everything and lost it all. This was the brutal death of Crassus, the man who died drinking molten gold. If you found this story disturbing, shocking, or just fascinating, there's more where that came from. We bring you the stories that were banned from the textbooks, the ones too dark to teach in school, the ones they tried to forget. Subscribe to Vaults of History and never look at the past the same way again.